Today, we're talking about the change of scenery for various players who have shifted teams in the offseason, and will it help their fantasy value or will it hinder their fantasy value, and like what we think may actually happen. So, there's a handful of players that we're probably going to touch on. I have a few. Also, Rec has a couple, and I know Scotty's going to have a handful of them as well. So we're going to dive into those. But I think the best way to go about this is I'm going to kick it off with my first guy that shifted teams. And here's the thing. There's a lot of players that shifted teams that, again, I don't think you guys maybe remember some of these that have shifted. Maybe you do, and you've been staying on top of everything, but there were a couple I was like, oh yeah, man, I forget they moved teams. Is Chris a Broncos fan? Do you think Wilson will have a comeback year? Naga, I think I am a Broncos fan, first of all. And by the way, Scotty, my co-host, is a Chiefs fan, and then we also unfortunately we have to hear about it. Yes, I'm a Broncos fan. Do I think he has a bounce back year? I do. Do I think it's enough to get him to the playoffs? I think that's going to be a stretch. However, I do know that the Broncos, at least locally, are super excited about all the moves they made. I mean, they were the most active, spending money, getting big name offensive linemen. They were making splashes in the offseason once we had Sean Payton in place. So I love what they did, Naga, but at the same time, it's hard. Anything is possible. You're right. I just think it's true, Riley. Anything is possible. Now, they're going to have I do anticipate them having a better season than last year. Actually, one of my hot takes, and this is something I've thought a little bit about. This might be a pretty hot take, but I think the Broncos might even get into the playoffs over the Chargers this season.
Ooh. That's a hot take.
Is that hot? Is that a hot take?
That's a hot take.
Spicy. Just saying. All right. So, I mean, you have two rosters that are about the same talent level, maybe. I mean, there's holes on certain aspects of what the Chargers have. The Broncos fixed a lot of their holes, and yet I feel like they're kind of similar rosters with what they have putting out there. So then you have a coaching thing where you're looking at Coach Sean Payton versus the Chargers coach, who I feel like chokes quite a bit and makes kind of like rough decisions throughout the course of this NFL season and particular games. I don't know. If you're going head to head, I like the Broncos head coach over the Chargers head coach. And then you have similar rosters. So maybe I can make that argument there. I'm not calling it officially, but I don't think I'd be shocked if I saw that happen at the end of the season. Perrine, yeah, miss him. I hope he does well in Denver. Whoopsies. How do you pronounce it?
Pirine.
It's not. That's not how it should be said. Perrine.
Yeah, can you pronounce his first name?
Samaji.
Close enough. Samaje.
Samaje. Yeah. Oh, he's gonna be good.
Pirine.
By the way, he's actually let's kick off there. Let's talk there. Let's talk about Pirine. I want to talk about that a little bit because I have him here on the graphic. He shifted teams. He is part of the Denver Broncos now, and I think he's gonna have a decent season. If you're looking for a value at the running back position, look no further than Pirine. I think he's going to have an interesting year only because, one, you have Javonte Williams, who is coming off an ACL, maybe ready week 1, but what is he going to look like? Like, we know that, like, usually it takes about a year off and then maybe even another half year or so to get in a right spot. Like, I think it's the injury occurs, you miss that next year, you come back, and it's the year after you come back is where I feel like you can kind of get back into that confidence of getting, those reps and feel really good about it. Do I think Javonte Williams will have an okay season? Sure, I just don't have high expectations. I think he's got a ceiling that he won't be able to reach based off of just what the injury entails. ACLs are tough to come back from, especially at a running back position. That like a lot of cutting, a lot of just it's tough for running backs. So I'm holding that. But that being said, Pirine might have a nice little boost here. Now think about this: Sean Payton, especially in New Orleans, leaned heavily on running back rotations. He had at least 2 running backs average 10 plus touches per game in 11 of 15 seasons as a Saints coach. So, like, he's going to get multiple backs involved. There's a reason. I mean, he actually made a call and handpicked him in the offseason. So I know he's going to use him. Like, even if Williams is healthy, Pirine should have value at some level, getting at least 10, maybe 10 to 15 carries, splitting it a little bit. I mean, look at what they had. They had Ingram Kamara, Ingram Sproles. I mean, there's a lot of combinations of running backs that they used in New Orleans over the course of his tenure that got a lot of value when it came to fantasy production and just how they like to run the offense through 2 running backs. We know the NFL is not workhorse running back related at this point, because basically we're looking at the whole spectrum of the running back position, and you're seeing the guys that are workhorses not get paid. So it's like you're starting to go down to you're starting to get down to these tandems, and Pirine kind of fits exactly that style of play that the NFL is shifting to, with, you know, running back by committee, and then 2, I mean, Sean Payton loves using heavy, you know, running backs when it comes to both. So multiple players. So I like the value that you're getting with Pirine here in Denver. If he's your, like, let's say you get to the middle to late rounds, and you're kind of taking a flyer on a couple guys, you're going to get some decent value here, at least from my perspective. Let me get to the chat here. Let's see. So which team will shock everyone this year? As far as just in general across the league, football wife? Is that kind of what you're referring to? I think the Broncos might surprise us this year in a good way with them doing better. I hate to say the Bills might surprise us in a bad way in not doing as well as they did last year. Interesting, right? I think the Bills. I want to. It's hard for me to stake the Bills. I feel like it, and maybe this is just like a deep rooted, like deep feeling in my core that I'm like, did the Bills peak like a year ago? Did they? I don't know. I just have a weird. They're a very good team. They're going to be there in the end, O'Reilly. But part of me just feels like they peaked already, and they're kind of just at the top, but not quite at the level they need to be. I don't know. I just get that vibe.
Yeah, it's like with like I said, I put money on Miami to win the division over Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, granted, that's gambling a lot on Tua's health, which is a big gamble.
You're putting a lot in there.
Yeah, but if Tua can stay mostly healthy, I like Miami's team as a whole more than Buffalo.
Let's see. No, I think Diggs drama is going to haunt us for at least well, I think there is the Diggs drama you have to figure out. Locker room stuff is one of those things too, is that you have to keep an eye on. Training camp will be a good time. Training camp's right around the corner. I can't wait. Dalvin Cook might go to Dallas. Dallas, if they want to pay
Dalvin Cook said he wants a lot of money too. Like he wants double digits, I think.
If there's one team that'll overpay running backs, it feels like Dallas has that locked down. What's up, TPP Poker? What's going on? How are we doing? WD, I thought the Bills would be hungry this year, but the Diggs thing, when there's stuff like that happening in the background, you just feel like maybe the Buffalo Bills have, I don't know, like that. You don't see things like that happening with like the best teams in the NFL that like have really good chances. Like, it's weird to have your star wide receiver, and I know wide receivers are the divas of the teams. I get that. So, but like when your wide receiver is talking like that, and you are a Super Bowl contender, I just feel like, man, like just put your head down and play. You know what I'm saying? Like you have a great team, you have a good quarterback, you have everything ahead of you. I mean, you're right there in the mix. What are we doing? Panthers are going to be markedly better. Bryce is NFL ready. Panthers will be an interesting team. I actually have a couple players on here that I want to talk about when it comes to the Panthers as well.
I know who they're going to be.
Yeah. We'll talk about, because there's been some players that have shifted teams for the Panthers as well. Do I think they make the playoffs? Yes. Is it going to be pretty? Not at all, says Riley.
I was talking about Buffalo. I thought we were talking about Carolina.
Milwaukee's waiting in the back. We'll get you in here, Milwaukee's, real quick in a minute here once we kind of get through some of the comments here, and then I want to get.
I'm sure he's got ideas on one of these players.
Yeah, 100%. That division is a toss-up. I wouldn't bet anything on AFC East. I mean, the AFC East is going to be a lot more competitive. I mean, you have the Patriots that are going to be probably at the bottom of that list.
After that would be the Jets. The Jets are going to be third in that division, and they will miss the playoffs.
Jets are an interesting one, only because Aaron Rodgers, he's a player that obviously is on this list that has changed teams. We're going to get to him in a minute, so I'll touch on that. Let me get to the last couple comments here. From the look of it, Cowboys need a kicker. We also need to get our defense on the same page. They're at least in the same book. We just need them to be on the same page. Patriots last. WD. Yeah. WD Kong. Yeah. Patriots, I don't feel like they have a really strong chance here when it comes to competing in that division. It's just too good. From top to bottom, it's just too good.
I was going to talk about with the Patriots, like one of my boys, and eventually with Sky's boys, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
From the Chiefs to the Patriots. But I have this deep feeling that they're going to misuse him. Juju is at his absolute best as a slot, and I think they're going to use him as an outside where he'll just be mid. So that'd be a player to, going back to a Wednesday show, Juju's probably a player to avoid in fantasy. He's going to be misused in a bad offense. He's kind of screwed.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I mean, and especially, too, the Patriots reworking their offensive coordinator, defensive, all these things. All that is going to be brand new this year. So that's going to – it's just hard for me to take them as seriously as some of the other teams in that division that have established coaching staffs that are, really in a space now with good players, a lot of talent across the rest of the division. Good quarterbacks across the division. Now we have, Miami is kind of Miami's a weird spot, right? Because we don't know the health of Tua, all the concussions that he's sustained over the course of the last season and his career in general. I mean, one concussion, and he might be missing almost half a season, if that. Like, it's just not, at a certain point, you can't feel reliable about that. But, I mean, Miami is kind of a wild card there. We'll see. But the weapons and the talent they've put around in Miami, it's fitting. It's fitting. We didn't see really too much of a fall off from Tyreek. Tyreek was able to get, decent year last year. So, I mean, decent. I have a feeling Rodgers is going to be the same way when then he'll blame it on everyone else and sulk about it. One conclusion that and he might have an end to it. Yeah. So Aaron Rodgers has to figure out the media in New York is not going to be the same media that he dealt with in Green Bay. Like if you thought that, and it's weird because he thrives. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers next, and we'll get Milwaukee's in. He thrives because he wants attention, but I don't know if he's ready for this kind of attention because the New York media and the New York fan bases will eat him up alive. And I don't think in his career he's ever experienced anything like this to the point where he's going to this season if he doesn't perform to the caliber that he's supposed to perform to. Now, diving in, let's talk about, I'll kind of bring in some of the things that I thought initially with with Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, we're gonna get either one, the Vengeance tour from Rodgers, but like I don't know. Like, part of me is like he's still gonna be adapting this new team. He's got to feel. He's got to get a feel on every other player, but I don't know if I could trust him as a go-to fantasy starter. I think what he's going to line up as is he's going to be a guy that you get as your backup. And then eventually I think he's going to shift to, if he ends up playing well, maybe your starter that you can play on occasion, that you can kind of swap in with maybe your, mid-tier quarterback. You could go back and forth based off of matchups. Yeah. But I'm not sure. I don't even know how much they're going to throw in New York. Like, we don't know how much the running game is going to be a big factor. You got Breece Hall. You got all sorts of things that the Jets want to do on the ground game. But also, I mean, you have all the weapons through the air, which helps Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think he's still in the category of like Jared Goff, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins. I don't think he's in that top echelon of players anymore than what he used to be. But having the young talent around him in New York helps a little bit, which is why, again, I think, in my opinion, you can take a flyer on him as like your backup if you have a late round pick and you're not super thrilled with your quarterbacks that you've taken, or the quarterback you've taken up until that point. Maybe he ends up surprising and doing some nice things. But let's talk about. I think we got Milwaukee's in. Yeah. Milwaukee, you there? Milwaukee, do we got you?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Milwaukee, what's going on, my friend?
Nothing. I was just listening here. All right,
we're
talking about sleeper running backs. Or you're not?
Well, yeah, I was talking about your boy Aaron Rodgers first, just now. But I mean, what are your first of all? Let's get your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers and what you expect out of him coming up this season. Like, where do you see him slotting in when it comes to his fantasy production, and what do you see as far as just how good he's going to be in New York?
I mean, other than the 2018 season, Aaron Rodgers has never been really a fantasy quarterback, to be honest with you. He's not going to rush for the yards. He's going to throw the touchdowns. I think he's going to dominate this year. To be honest, I think the Jets are going to be really good.
Okay. I mean, I think... I mean,
what's his over under? 35 touchdowns?
I think it's going to be a little... I mean, I could see him having a decent season, which is why I think you can take a flyer on him later on in the draft. I don't think you take him anywhere near probably the first half of quarterbacks taken off the board when it comes to fantasy football. But
you don't think A-Rod is a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year?
I don't. No. I think that I just don't know how the New York Jets are going to run that offense, and it's a brand new, like, everything's brand new. I mean, I just don't know if I can trust him.
He's under the same system he was in Green Bay.
That's true. They did have a Hackett.
I just don't know if I could. Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, let's see. Let me take a look at something real quick, because Aaron Rodgers last year averaged 14.1 fantasy points per game in Green Bay.
Look who he is throwing to.
I know who. Yeah. I understand. And he does have a lot better situation, but they're going to rely on Breece Hall, I think, a ton. Their running game a ton. I think that they're going to be playing some really good teams in that division. I think that across the board, just learn.
Speak of Breece Hall, is he better than Aaron Jones?
Is Breece Hall better than? Well, the thing that with Breece Hall is like he's coming off the injury, so like that's. I mean, it's kind of hard to figure out what Breece Hall we're going to see. Do I think he'll be effective? Yeah, but I think still, I know, looking at the recent years for Aaron Rodgers and what he's been putting up, regardless of last year or the year before, just the playoff performances, I don't know if he's a guy that you can consistently trust. And I get you have a lot of young players in New York. I just don't know if it's something that I would trust as a start. If taking him as my starting quarterback for my fantasy league terrifies me.
There's a lot of upside though.
Yeah, there's a lot of upside, but there's also
he's a high risk, high reward kind of a player. So you got to.
Exactly.
I mean, right now, I mean, I'm not taking him over. Like, I think he's down there in the same categories as, you know, a Cousins and a Goff and I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, those two players both averaged more fantasy points last season with maybe lesser. I mean, Jared Goff had nobody in LA. That team was absolutely the worst team possibly
Jared
out
Goff
there.
was in Detroit.
Jared Goff was not in LA. He was in Detroit.
I'm sorry. Detroit. Sorry. In Detroit.
They did have weapons. They did have weapons in Detroit.
And I feel like, all right, so yeah, you have a quarterback in Detroit that's like, all right, fine. Got some weapons. I think it's similar situation in New York. I just
Did Jamal Williams not lead the league in touchdowns last year for a running back?
He did.
No.
He did, but
Jared Goff.
So anyways, if you want to hitch your horses to a guy like Aaron Rodgers, hey, do it. I just don't know if I'm going to take him anywhere near where I would take some of the other players in this draft.
Yeah, I think he's going to get the passing yards. He's not going to get you the rushing yards of, say, a Jalen Hurts or a Fields.
I would take players like, you're getting into the Trevor Lawrences, the Justin Fields, the
look who Trevor Lawrence is throwing to.
Well, true,
He's
but
got studs.
There's a lot of guys I would take over Aaron Rodgers going into this season. Like a lot of guys. And just from a fantasy perspective, that's all. That's all I'm saying. But will he have success as his first year? And there's a difference between. I feel like we always got to bridge this gap too. There's a difference between fantasy quarterback and actual quarterback, right? Like we know that, guys like Justin Fields isn't going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL necessarily. But when it comes to fantasy production, he's going to be one of your top guys. Similar to, guys like, I don't know. Kyler Murray might get you some fantasy points. He's going to be on the worst team in football, but he's going to put up some fantasy points with his legs, right? Like it doesn't equate from a regular fantasy standpoint to an actual what you're getting for winning quarterback in the NFL from just a wins and loss standpoint.
Or does Justin Fields fall into the Lamar Jackson territory where he's going to play a great 6-7 games and he's gone the rest of the year?
Potentially. Yeah, especially if they don't fix that offensive line enough.
So let's go ahead. Milwaukee, you had someone else you wanted to talk about that changed teams?
No, not really. Let's talk about running backs in the NFC North. Can anyone name one?
Aaron Jones.
Well, yeah, NFC.
Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert.
You got
Madison.
Yeah, you got the Chicago group that's like
Montgomery.
What
do you think he's going to do this year?
Montgomery's just a boring player.
Okay.
Like he's going to be
exactly
like he falls in. Well, he falls and I talked about this last show where it's like draft boring players. Now I said that with a grain of salt because boring players that are continuously productive year in and year out are always going to be guys that you'll want to rely on when it comes to fantasy production. Now there's always going to be the sexy picks, the Swifts of the world, the big name guys that are just like, oh man, that's a sexy pick. But like guys like Montgomery are boring names that are gonna put up decent numbers. Maybe not gonna blow you out of the way, or blow you away, but at the same time, they're gonna be consistently just productive with a high floor, right?
At very least, it's a good flex option.
Yeah. So I think that there's some options there, but going to maybe some. We're talking about a little bit about the Bears. Actually, speaking of the Bears, we had a new player come to the Bears. Speaking of changing of environments, DJ Moore was on my list here to talk about. And
who's going to throw on the ball? Fields?
Justin Fields is there. I do not feel great about DJ Moore whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
One, I don't know if the Bears can even score touchdowns in general. So what makes me think DJ Moore is going to be a guy that's going to get high volume touchdowns? Fields, I think, is going to take a step up this year. I think he's going to be a little bit better than last year. But I think the big jump will come after this season going into next season. So I think, we saw some flashes from Fields last season that I feel were interesting. But the Bears were one of the most run-heavy teams in football last year. Also, Fields likes to use his legs a ton, which takes away, shots downfield to receivers like DJ Moore in this offense. So I think that's an aspect you got to keep an eye on when it comes to the Chicago Bears. Fields threw the ball 21 times per game last year. Like, that was on average.
Average of what?
Just average times per game. So every game, he averaged around 21 times throwing per game. So, I mean, you're not going to get a high volume. Plus, you have Claypool, who actually just got thrown into that PUP list as of today. You have Claypool, Mooney.
Claypool's not going to do anything unless someone brings his IQ above potato level.
Total. Yeah. You got Claypool, you got Mooney, you got Tyler Scott, you got Cole Kmet, you got running backs that'll catch passes this year. From a pure volume standpoint, I wouldn't even go anywhere near DJ Moore this year. So when it comes to guys with new environments and how that affects their fantasy value, I think DJ Moore is a guy I'm just not feeling this year.
Speaking of fantasy, what do you think of Jefferson now that no Delvin Cook and Madison just got arrested?
Madison just got arrested?
Yeah.
Oh, Marlon.
He's going 140 and a 30.
No, that wasn't Madison. That was Jordan Addison.
Jordan Addison, right?
That was their rookie receiver. Yeah. Sorry, I was talking about Alexander Madison, the new running back.
Oh, I mean, that's a rookie wide receiver, so...
Yeah, Jordan Addison. Yeah, Jordan Addison did get arrested. I did see that.
Yeah, I think at this point, like
I've seen mock drafts where Jefferson goes 1.
Well, I think, and
he's a stud.
We're gonna get in the top. But we kind of talked about that last show as well, about like how the draft should unfold a little bit at the top, where you're going to be taking more wide receivers. It's just more reliable. You're just getting a guaranteed reliable source of production, as opposed to kind of being a 50-50 on the top, 12 running backs. We talked about the fact that of the top 12 running backs last year, only 6 of them finished in the top 12 when it all said and done, whereas the top 8 receivers that were taken finished, 7 of the top 8 finished in the top 8. It's just like, that's just the way it is. So when it comes down to me choosing between like a guy like Christian McCaffrey at like number 2 potentially, or a guy like Justin Jefferson, or a guy that's going to be super productive from a wide receiver standpoint, Jamar Chase, yeah, I'm probably going to lean towards taking a wide receiver in those spots. My
only argument there, the NFL is a league of adjustments. Coordinators are going to adjust to that. I mean, look at the Packers. I know I'm being a homer, but Packers week 1 against Justin Jefferson gave up like 190 yards and 3 touchdowns to that guy. But then they, Jair marked this guy man to man. He had like 20 yards.
And now we'll see how Jefferson would adjust to that. Like it's a game of adjustments. We just gotta see.
It is, and I think a lot of these D coordinators are gonna say, "All right, these are the rules. Let's shut down these wide receivers down." A lot of slant backs like McCaffrey or say Aaron Jones or even a Kamara, they're gonna start getting open space.
Real quick,
I would not draft Kamara.
Real quick, let's get to the chat here. Let's see. Chairman, he did. Montgomery is going to have an improved year because he has an O-line to run behind this year. I honestly, again, he's that boring pick that's going to end up being like a consistent, get you like 10 to 11 points per week, and you're going to feel really good about it. Let's see. Montgomery rushed for 30 yards and then bite off your knee. Yeah, that could also be a thing too. Another player that we have on our list is an interesting one here that I actually have on the graphic is Calvin Ridley to the Jags. We kind of forget like Calvin Ridley like exists, I think, in this day and age, because it's like he's been in a weird spot, right? Like he spent the last couple years, like he had the let's go, JK. He spent the last couple seasons like in a weird spot where he was, mental health, stepped away in 2021 for mental health purposes. Then he, came back, and then he was suspended for all last year for gambling. So he's only played like 3.5 seasons. But he goes to a Jags team with Trevor Lawrence, a nice up-and-coming team, which I think have a great chance to win that division outright this year. Given the fact that division, looking the rest of it is like, I don't know if I like truly trust in some of the other teams. But the way Trevor Lawrence, that team looks, able to make the playoffs last season, looked pretty good. Only building on what they have. I like them a lot. Now, people forget that he had a great rookie year. He had like 10 touchdowns his rookie year, on his way to 1,000 for the next season, but then got hurt. Year 3, he had 1,300 yards and 10 TDs. Year 4 is when he stepped away. Year 5 is when he got suspended. So he had some really decent production in those first couple seasons of being in the NFL. He just hasn't all put it together quite yet into, just a nice full season in the last couple of years, which in a good environment like Jacksonville with a nice, young, talented players around him, I don't know. I feel like he's in tune for a nice production boost when it comes to fantasy football this year.
Yeah. Although, I'm going to go the opposite way. Like, we saw what happened with Deshaun Watson after a year and a half of football. The elite quarterback turned into a bad one very quick.
So you got to keep your eye on that too. Is he has been away from football for quite a bit. So
my question, you two, I'm ignorant. Who is Jacksonville's number 2 wide receiver?
Zay Jones.
Yeah, they just used a draft pick on Zay. So
no,
so you're gonna have Christian Kirk. Then do you think Ridley steps into that number 2?
Oh yeah, Christian Kirk is the other one there. Which I think Christian Kirk. I don't know if I'm really. I think he's fine, but I think
he was good for me last year.
Yeah, I think he's fine.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah, but with that's a guy I might take a flyer on in the very late draft because he's probably not going to do anything, at least in the beginning. Either you take him late in the draft and hold on, see if he gets any value, or you let him fall all the way out of the draft and then watch him to see when he can be a good waiver pickup.
Yeah, I think,
talking about Christian Kirk drop out of the draft. There's no way.
Yeah, Kirk's going to be the top receiver from Jacksonville.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's going to be a lot of teams' number 1's wide receiver.
But you're looking at Trevor Lawrence. You got running back Travis Etienne. You got Kirk, Ridley, Zay Jones. You have Evan Ingram from a tight end standpoint.
Who just got paid. Somehow.
Evan Ingram is still there. And then you still have, some really solid defensive help on the other side as well. So I think top to bottom, I think this team has a nice little jump this year, especially when it comes to making those playoff runs a little deeper. And if Trevor Lawrence can take that one step further from last season, I think he's a huge addition there. Scotty, we got Scotty joining us here. Let's get Scotty in here. Let's talk through some things.
That can't be true.
Yeah, there he is. What's up, Scotty?
I'm about to lose my mind, man.
What happened?
Dude, just a dumpster fire of children losing their minds.
Jeez.
But you made it.
Turns into 2, turns into 3 screaming for no reason.
Well, now you could get all your aggression out on talking through some NFL.
Yeah, I just heard you guys. I mean, you were talking Jacksonville, and I love Jacksonville from the skill position. I think it'll be interesting, though. Calvin Ridley, for all the talent in the world, was a first-round draft pick out of Alabama with Atlanta, has only had 1 year where he eclipsed 1,000 yards receiving. And that year he was clutch and he was huge. And he's going in, and you guys talked about him as the number 2. He's the number 1 if he is who he should be. He surpasses Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk moves to the 2, Zay Jones. But regardless, you have Ridley, Kirk, Jones, Ingram, ETN, and Trevor Lawrence. Like,
stacked.
That's pretty stacked, dude. That's pretty stacked. I mean, Jacksonville's sounds weird to say out loud, but they're legit, dude.
Yeah,
they're legit.
Scotty, just to get you caught up, we talked about a couple players already. I talked about P. Ryan in Denver, about Javon, just from a pure fantasy standpoint, being able to get some nice touches with Javonte coming back off of a bad injury. Also, the fact that Sean Payton loves to lean on 2 running backs. I mean, he's averaged running backs under Sean Payton get about 10 plus touches per game in the last 11 of 15 seasons. Even if he's healthy, I feel like even if Williams is healthy, I feel like P. Ryan's going to have his value, especially with like how Sean likes to get players, especially in New Orleans. Ingram Kamara, Ingram Sproles, all the various combinations have all been productive from a dual standpoint. And he handpicked him. So I feel like they're going to use him quite a bit, but I like his value from strictly a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah. To be honest, like, obviously the Chiefs have played the Bengals a lot these last few years, and it's gone mostly the Bengals' way. And in my opinion, P. Ryan's been a bigger problem at the running back position than Mixon was in those games. Samaje P. Ryan was a problem. Now he moves to Denver. I don't expect... I know everyone loves Williams, but coming off an ACL, it's probably going to take a full season. I don't know if he'll be ready to go at the beginning of the season in general. And even if he is, I think P. Ryan's going to be... I would be surprised if P. Ryan's not the number 1 running back in Denver as far as fantasy production this year. I think he will. I think he'll be 1. And I'd be shocked if he's not.
I think you're right. I feel like the same way about what his value could be. Chairman, so Scotty's betting on Ridley. I'll show myself out.
Not betting on. Well, I'll ask Ridley what he wants to do. If he wants to bet on him, I'll bet on him for him.
So we also talked about Rodgers and Juju and DJ Moore.
Yeah, DJ Moore, we feel like we're not touching him with a 10-foot pole.
Juju, we're not touching with a 10-foot pole.
I agree on DJ. I agree on Juju. I mean,
Rodgers could be a solid pick.
1,000
I said bet on Aaron Jones because Love is not going to know what to do other than just dump the ball off to him.
Yeah,
Jones would be a good pick.
Yeah, him and AJ he probably will dump off a lot. The question is, like, how many touchdowns does Jones get? That would be my only question.
At very least, he'll get a lot of touches.
Yeah, he should.
Yeah.
I mean,
we also talked about David Montgomery behind a better offensive line.
I mean, Montgomery's going to replace Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams led the league in rushing TDs last year. Yeah. And now David Montgomery steps into that spot with the Lions. I fully expect David Montgomery to have a monster season in fantasy. Yeah.
I mean,
I liked him in Chicago.
Like, he fits that take a boring player that puts up points. Like, take a boring guy that's no one's excited about.
I love Jamal Williams' personality and, like, person. But Jamal Williams is very much a mid running back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he led the league in rushing touchdowns last year.
Yeah, like he's like the Trent Richardson in the AAF.
People don't realize how good Detroit's offense is. They sleep on it. They're Detroit this year, if everyone stays healthy, is going to be a top 6-7 offense in the league, and I want to say 5. I want to go top 5, and they very well could be. But I'll play it a little safer with 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But Chris didn't even know who their quarterback was. He thought that he was still playing in LA.
Well, it's only been a little while now since he moved on to LA. 2 years.
Been 2 seasons.
No, you remember LA won a Super Bowl in that time, and Goff wasn't the quarterback of that team, right, Chris? You remember.
Wait, Jared Goff didn't win Super Bowl MVP?
I vaguely remember.
He played in the Super Bowl, which might have been the worst Super Bowl in history.
Yeah.
That New England LA Super Bowl was awful to watch.
Also, football wife wants you banned now, Chris.
Ooh.
I mean, it's up on the initial. It's up on all the other things, but it's like if for some reason, let me see if I can. I'll try to find it for you, football wife. We'll see if we can pull it up here. Don't worry.
She says it's her countdown clock, but it's kind of my countdown clock because it's for my team, Chris. The defending Super Bowl champions get to play in that opener. Just
there's the clock.
What is the 5 fingers?
Also on the screen,
What?
man that got way too much money this offseason. Odell Beckham Jr. for the Ratbirds. Don't touch him either.
I mean, Odell Beckham. Let's talk about it a little bit. So Odell Beckham, I have a couple others too. Scotty, I think we'll get to one that you have that changed teams as well. But I think OBJ. All right. So first of all, we all know like we're not super thrilled about Lamar Jackson being an elite thrower of the football, top to bottom. Like we know that there's some challenges with how he prioritizes running versus throwing. And then when he does throw, targeting sidelines. You guys have heard on this show plenty of times in the past. But let's go back to OBJ. The last time he had more than 6 touchdowns in a season was 2016. He hasn't had 1,000 yards since 2019. Like, I mean, this is a guy you're probably in fantasy, your draft, you're probably taking him maybe a round or two before you take your defense, probably. I mean, I don't know.
You take him.
If you're taking OBJ, and if you get OBJ in your draft, you've taken him too high.
If you take him at all.
Taken him
if you don't let him go all the way to the end.
He's a guy at the peak you're taking before like your defense in here.
Listen, I think if you're taking any wide receiver in Baltimore, I actually think it's going to be Zay Flowers, their rookie they drafted this year in the first round out of Boston College. Like, I love Zay Flowers' game. I think Zay Flowers could be a great pick down the line in the draft. OBJ, the dude's just had so many injuries, and you can't rely on him.
He missed an entire year.
I mean, he went to Cleveland. He didn't really do a lot in Cleveland. He helped LA. He certainly helped LA in their Super Bowl run and had a great Super Bowl before he tore his ACL again in whatever that was, the second quarter or whatever. So the talent's unquestionable, but like at this point, he's kind of damaged goods.
I think OBJ was balling out the year in LA before he tore it, but Cooper Kupp had a record year that year.
Correct.
You got to remember that.
Right. Yeah. Not OBJ. Cooper Kupp did.
Yeah, and he got a lot of the offspring of, all right, we're double teaming Cooper Kupp.
OBJ with the Rams had 305 yards receiving in the regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, when did he get signed by the Rams, though? Because he played, 5 games?
Fair. I think it's more than 5, but that's fair. I'll check.
Yeah, he was a late addition if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because he was
definitely was. He played.
He got cut right after the trade deadline.
With the Rams, he was 8 games with the Rams, 7 games starting. So 7 games starting. Let's eliminate 8.
So 7 games, 300 yards to
300 yards.
And that's just over 40 per game.
It's 38 if you do 8 games, it's 38.1 yards per game. That's not.
If you do 7, it's just over 40 per game.
And you're like, oh wait, but he's way better than that. Oh, on Cleveland before in that same season, he was at 38.7. The year before, he was at 50.
Yeah, and then he's coming off his second ACL injury. Plus, he didn't play at all last year, and he's on the wrong side of 30. And Lamar Jackson doesn't like throwing to the outside. Like Mark Andrews is his number 1 target. Do not touch OBJ.
In the last 3 years, he's not had 1,000 yards combined. You just can't rely. You can't rely.
He just hasn't done anything recently. I mean, he gives me such T.O. vibes. Like it's not even close. It's like
T.O. actually had longevity. This dude doesn't.
it's just it's just part of it. Like,
If
I don't
I'm
know.
targeting a wide receiver that's on the move, I'm intrigued by Brandon Cooks.
Brandon
Yeah, because
Cooks.
Dallas is a pass-happy offense.
Dallas
To the
passes
Cowboys.
a ton. He goes in. He's probably the number 2 option there. They lose their tight end, so you're relying more on the wide receiving core beyond CD Lamb. You have Michael Gallup as well, but he's probably, I mean, they're different style wide receivers. I think Cooks is going to be Dak's best friend for a long time.
Maybe. Although I'm looking at the list of receivers that were on the move.
I mean,
None of these names really stick out to me. Like, again, there's DeAndre Hopkins, but he's in Tennessee where they have nothing.
I mean, you have Allen
Moore.
Robinson to the Steelers, Juju to the Pats, Thielen to the
Robinson's a
Panthers.
backup.
I mean, there's a lot.
Elijah
Moore to the
maybe
Browns.
If, like, the Browns.
I thought Moore went to the Lions.
No, Browns.
Moore went from the Jets to the Browns.
But Mims went to the Lions.
Mims just went to the Lions. That's.
I'm losing track of the Jets receivers getting traded.
Well, and Elijah Moore, I don't know if I trust him either, because one, you have, I don't trust him. You still got Amari Cooper. You got a couple other options on that offense. So what? Elijah goes into the slot, I guess, in their offense. So he might get some, but the Browns like to run the ball too. Like, they're very heavy in running the ball. So I just don't know. With all the options from a receiver standpoint, plus you have just that kind of an offense. And you have a quarterback that's coming back that may or may not be. I mean, we saw a little bit of everything from Deshaun Watson, and most of it was not great last season. So it's like, I don't know what to expect from him if he's going to take a step up. So Elijah's kind of just like a guy that maybe is not. That changed uniforms that maybe isn't on my list, on my radar, as much as I probably would target some of the other guys that maybe have moved. But yeah,
As a Deshaun Watson hater, I think he's going to have a bounce back year. He's actually had time to scheme, and
I mean, well,
I think he's going to be all right.
Anything's going to be bounce back from last year.
Yeah, like that's a very low bar to clear.
He was so bad when he played last year. I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to be a top 15 quarterback in the league ever.
I don't think he's going to be like a top 20 quarterback, or maybe top 25.
No.
Like, he's still going to be a bottom quarterback. And
I mean, he literally came out and they were interviewing. He was like, I told my story to the team last night in a like really impactful way. And I'm like, are we making Deshaun Watson out to be the victim in all this? Like, what do you mean you told this story? The story was that you put these girls in these awkward and uncomfortable situations. That's the story.
I think a little bit more than awkward.
Yeah.
there's a little bit more there.
He's like turning himself into a victim, and it's gross. Gross.
All right, we'll take an early bet here. Fantasy-wise, the AFC East. Does Deshaun Watson beat Lamar or Joe Burrow in fantasy points?
So the AFC North, you mean?
No, Lamar's a great fantasy quarterback, mainly because of his legs. I take Lamar.
Wait,
where would you position him?
Watson, I put third or fourth in the AFC East.
North. Again, guys.
North.
I'm sorry, I said
focus. Watson's a solid. North. He's a third. He's solid 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely behind Lamar, and he's definitely behind Joe Burrow.
Because
from a fantasy point, I wouldn't take him over those two.
He's in front of small hands.
That's all I was asking. Fantasy point.
Yeah, I wouldn't take him over.
Fantasy Watson's third.
And I would I might take Pickett over him too. Like I don't know. I don't love Pickett.
Watson will still run a little more.
Yeah, Watson does have a little more athleticism from that standpoint. I will agree there.
Pickett's not draftable. I wouldn't draft Watson either, but Pickett's not draftable at this point. No offense.
Let's get to the chat here. Cooks to Dallas was mid. He's our 3 or 4, says Nick.
I think he's going to be your 2.
You got Michael Gallup. Oh, no, he could be a 3 because you got Gallup and CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, he's going to get the ball thrown more to him than Gallup. Gallup's more of like a, over-the-top guy a little bit.
Maybe.
I mean, he can make some of those other ones, but I think Gallup's 1 year removed from ACL, so I hope Gallup's back to who he was 2 years ago. But I think Cooks is going to get a lot of targets because Dak likes to get rid of the ball quickly underneath. I think Cooks is going to be like his best friend. Like, I honestly think that's a perfect fit with those two.
Although, to be honest, looking at the...
I think Gallup's more talented at this point, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think like Cooks I've been burned by Cooks so many times that I'm just like, I just have that in the back of my head that he's just
like, no.
How'd you get burned by Cooks?
I mean, he hasn't been too good the last couple of years.
No. I think I've taken him like late, and I ended up like, thinking, oh, maybe he could be like a sleeper. I think I took him like, say 2 or 3 rounds before, the bottom of my draft. But like
when he's healthy, 6 of the last 8 years, he's had over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Which years did he not?
Last year with the Texans, and then in 2019. So with the Texans, who were garbage in 2021, and I guess in 2020 he was playing with Deshaun Watson, but whatever. He had 1,150 and 1,037. So if he's putting up those numbers, he still had 700 yards last year, but he wasn't fully healthy.
And there's also the whole thing about like him wanting out, and then he left the team, I think, on his own accord.
Dude is still going to be able to produce.
Yeah, but like,
I'm not saying he's going to be like a dominant wideout, but like people are
like if he's in your flex, it's not the worst option.
Yeah, and with the Texans, he was 81 and 90 receptions in 2020 and 2021.
Okay. Although I'm looking at the wide receiver list, the only one that I like that moved is Alan Lazard, and that's mainly because he's one of Aaron Rodgers' best friends.
Yeah,
he's gonna get targeted a lot.
They didn't do anything when they were together their whole career, so.
With Schottenheimer, Dallas, will they run a lot or have a balanced offense with Schottenheimer in Dallas?
Although Schottenheimer's not calling the plays. Mike McCarthy's calling the plays, so you are boned
Which
Dallas.
terrifies me. McCarthy,
you don't. I don't feel
McCarthy's
like
terrible.
You don't feel good about that. McCarthy hasn't.
I was wondering about that. Like, CeeDee Lamb's going to get a lot of the things, and how healthy is Pollard going to be? Would they have a healthy tight end for the dump off?
Pollard will be healthy. I mean, whether he stays healthy is one question because he's never had a full workload, but he'll be fully healthy.
Is he going to be healthy with that broken leg?
I
mean, it was just.
I think it's healed.
A broken leg is way better to have as an injury than like.
Than an ACL.
Yeah, way better than like an Achilles or an ACL.
And
a
you got Dak Prescott throwing him the football. That's also a problem.
Another.
I mean, we don't have Cooper Rush in there.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It was Super Cooper, and Brandon Cooks will be the wide receiver 1.
Stop it.
We lost our way.
We lost
our way.
Super Cooper.
Another player that shifted teams that I might have my eye on a little bit, just from a fantasy perspective, is Miles Sanders of the Carolina Panthers can be interesting, right? So Miles Sanders is a guy that, like, I feel, hasn't been bad, honestly. So he goes and he's joining in Chuba Hubbard, right? Miles Sanders, and those pretty much are the only 2 options there. And then they have a bunch of no names kind of backing them up. But like, you have Deuce Staley still. I think he followed him over, if I'm not mistaken, from Philly. Is he one of the coaches over there still? Running back coach?
I think Deuce Staley's in Detroit.
Or did he go to Detroit?
I think
he was with Detroit during Hard Knocks last year.
Maybe. Okay. Anyways,
but regardless, Miles Sanders is. You're like, oh well, he has Chuba Hubbard. No, Chuba Hubbard cannot exist. As far as I'm concerned. Miles Sanders is going to get the bulk of carries. He's going to get more carries in Carolina than he ever got in Philadelphia.
Well, and the Panthers have a good offensive line. They have a lot of questions at wide receiver. He got 260 carries, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, and it was a top 15 running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. Deontay Foreman was pretty much the only one left after McCaffrey left, right? Yeah. And
him and Hubbard,
and he played well. Like, I mean, what's not to like about Miles Sanders being like the lead back for a Carolina Panthers team that I feel like is going to be doing a lot of running the ball, like not being able to rely on receivers as much. But I don't know. That's just I feel like you got to take a look at that a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that, especially with the rookie quarterback.
I just question like touchdown upside.
True.
Like how many points is Carolina going to score this year offensively? Yeah. That's my only question. Miles Sanders is going to get the touches, and I think Miles Sanders is talented. I love Miles Sanders coming out of Penn State years ago. I think he was the second round pick to Philly.
Second and third.
I'm gonna go second. I feel good.
Either which way was a day 2 pick.
Jay Cross, Deuce is the running back coach for Carolina.
Oh, he did go to Carolina?
That's what I could have sworn I saw that.
The Deuce is loose.
The Deuce is loose.
The only reason I was talking about it is because he was on Hard Knocks last year. So I'm like, I think he's in Detroit. I don't often keep track of like running back coaches switching jobs.
I don't either.
Well, yeah, and I know that
Carolina.
And I know that Sanders. Yeah, I feel like he's gonna under Deuce is gonna have. I don't know. I just think overall, I think he's a guy that you can target at some point in your draft and feel good about the value you're getting if he falls in the right spot. So, yeah,
my only problem with Miles Sanders is the rookie quarterback. You're gonna stack 8 in the box. Go, all right, Miles, try to beat us.
Yeah,
it's a risk.
It's part of it.
It's very much a risk.
Yeah, especially since their only receiving threat is old man Adam Thielen.
Not a lot of threats. I get all of that. Obviously, he was the number 1 overall pick. So if you're that good,
Miles Curls.
make shit happen, dude. Bryce Young.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who even is the tight end.
Probably Greg Olsen.
What?
I'm kidding.
Olsen, yeah. No, I see what you're doing now, but like, there's no way that one dude from a couple years ago is the starting tight end. Can't remember his name.
No, they signed. Carolina took Hayden Hurst actually.
No, I'm sorry, Scotty, but we were talking fantasy here, and I was like, that's why Miles Sanders he's a risk. Because they're going to stack 8 in the box. You know this as well as I do.
I just think, yeah, he's going to get touches. That's what you like about him, and I think he's talented. What he does with him, we'll see. Because I don't know if that offense is going to be good enough to move the ball down the field, and there's question marks there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, take Miles Sanders in the top 2 rounds by any stretch of the imagination, but...
Yeah, but maybe in the mid-rounds, he'd be a solid pick.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be a lead back on an NFL team. The most important thing you can do when you have a running back on your team is rely on touches. Touches is the most important stat you could have as a running back. So if you know a guy's
touchdowns,
pure volume.
It's all volume. Touchdowns can go by the wayside from year to year. You never know how that's going to end up. But you know how touches are going to go, or you think, like DeAndre Swift. I made fun of Detroit all last year, like, for not giving DeAndre Swift. Now he's in Philly.
He's not going to get the ball much.
I hate DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I'm so off DeAndre Swift.
Like, he didn't get touches there. Now he's in Philly. He's a great receiving back, but you know what? Where receiving backs go to die? Playing with running quarterbacks. Running quarterbacks don't throw. Literally, Philadelphia was like last in the league at throwing to running backs last year. And it's not because they couldn't, it's because they didn't need to. Their quarterback just ran the ball instead.
Yeah, or he'd throw it to his elite receivers.
Yeah.
He's got a great tight end. He's got AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, and and then you can run on your own. So why are you going to throw the ball to your running back? You don't need to.
I was so down on DeAndre in the last week. I was like, he can get injured. Coaches know he's not disciplined between the tackles. He's now going to be a receiving back that doesn't, for a team that doesn't check down ever. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to want to have on your fantasy team and feel good start every single week. It's just not one of those things. So I just don't feel it.
He probably only got traded for it because he fits the Philadelphia Bulldog scheme.
Scotty,
we haven't talked about the guy that led the NFL in rushing touchdowns last year. He switches teams. Jamal Williams goes from the Lions to the Saints.
He's not going to do shit.
I mean, he didn't do shit before last year, really. It was all based off of, getting those touchdowns. I don't think New Orleans is going to have as successful an offense as Detroit last year. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't love Jamal Williams. I think he's going to get overdrafted at least.
Yeah, probably.
So if he's on your team, you made a mistake.
Yeah. Oh, you also look at speaking of New Orleans, you have a quarterback that had a terrible coach, and you send him to a team with a terrible coach and bad weapons. How's his fantasy stock going to do?
Talking about Derek Carr shifting over to the New Orleans Saints.
I see what you did
New
there.
Orleans Saints, will Michael Thomas play this year?
Nope.
Michael Thomas isn't ever going to play again.
Or is he going to pull the regular Michael Thomas? Nope. I'm out.
Yeah, even if he does play, what's he going to do?
Michael Thomas, isn't he still not practicing? Like, he's been off for like 2.5 years, and he's still not practicing currently with the team. And I'm just like,
ever since he got the bag.
If you want to talk about players that I'm not even don't even. Michael Thomas isn't going to be. He's not that guy anymore.
And by the way, the Saints gave him an extension.
What's that?
The Saints actually extended Michael Thomas this year.
The Saints have been in financial despair. Haven't they been in like terrible situations with their financial situation?
Yes.
Like,
yes, even after Drew Brees retired,
like,
and their starting quarterback was under $2 million.
This is why, because they're paying dudes that never play.
That's Thomas, Kamara,
Jameis.
Come on, man.
Yeah, Jameis Winston again. Here's a starting quarterback under $2 million.
They still have Taysom Hill. Let's not forget.
Oh yes, Mormon Tebow.
I mean, Derek Carr. Do I think he can maybe come in and be a decent fantasy quarterback for you?
No,
I don't think. I'm probably selling my stock. I'm probably
Nah, he's not. Derek Carr will not be a top 12 quarterback fantasy wise.
He probably won't even be top 15.
Yeah,
I agree, but that defense is still pretty nasty. They are good.
Yeah. He just offers nothing fantasy wise as far as running at all. So
and then his only receiver is Olave, and then the return man. That's okay.
Yeah, and he'll throw to the wrong team from time to time.
Yeah,
I mean, of the top half of average fantasy points last season, he was by far the lowest of anybody in the first half, only averaging 14.6 fantasy points per game for the Raiders.
To be fair, he did miss the last 2 games entirely.
I mean, I'm not.
But yeah, I'm still not looking to take him. No.
I mean, everyone else around him. I mean, he's in the bot when it comes to average fantasy points per game. You have a couple young, maybe wide receivers that you can like lean on, but I just don't love what the New Orleans Saints are putting out on the field. So
what about?
In all fairness, he had to play the Chiefs twice, so that's gonna bring it way
I mean,
down.
the Chiefs didn't really have much of a defense.
The Chiefs,
they had an okay defense.
Oh, just Super Bowl winning defense. I don't know.
It's the pressure of playing the Chiefs twice a year. Like,
again, one of those games was when Jarrett Stidham was playing. That was the same game that the Chiefs decided to play Ring Around the Rosie.
Last year, yeah, was Stidham. The last game of the season was Stidham. Yeah.
Ring Around the Rosie.
Yeah, we toy with people. The only position we haven't really covered though that's interesting is tight end had some movement here.
I have Darren one Waller, on my list is Darren Waller. Yep.
We had Dalton Schultz, who was really good for the Cowboys. He goes to the Texans. Yeah. You have Gesicki moving on from the Dolphins to the Patriots. You have Irv Smith Jr. Irv Smith Jr., who you loved last year in fantasy with the Vikings. He goes to the Bengals. The Bengals also drafted. They drafted a tight end in the draft, right? High up.
I think so. Yeah. Did they get the?
Or no,
it's
Buffalo did. No, it was Buffalo that did. Not
Buffalo got the serial killer. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's some movement there at the tight end spot with a lot of guys that were at least a higher end in the league. as far as tight end position. Like, does Darren Waller produce in New York better than he did with the Raiders?
I'd say yeah.
I don't know. I think so. There's a couple things that go into this, right? I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 3 to 5 tight end next season. Like I feel like
that's also okay because the tight end position sucks in fantasy.
Well, there's only like one good tight end. Like that is going to be like you're taking Kelsey as your number 1 overall. Then it literally falls off a cliff, and then you kind of have some, then you got one or two in like that 2 or 3 maybe next, and then it falls off even further, and you're just at that point you're relying on just hopefully matchups and hopefully some guys that maybe surprise the season. But Danny Dimes likes to throw short over the middle. That fits to what I feel like Darren Waller can execute in this offense. But there's a couple things holding me back from Darren Waller. And one, that's his injury history, his age.
Yeah, it's awful.
Giants scoring touchdowns. I don't know if they're going to be able to. I mean, you don't have Saquon, right? Maybe he missed Saquon for now. We'll see.
They'll have Saquon.
But Giants scoring touchdowns doesn't happen a lot. I feel like from pure volume standpoint of like scoring touchdowns, I don't see this as a prolific offense that are moving down the field consistently, putting up touchdowns and stuff. So there's tons of slot.
Wide receiver 1 is like what, like Darius Slayton or something?
Yeah, they have they have 100 slot receivers, don't they? Don't they have 1 million slot receivers? And so that's going to cut into fantasy production. So like, there's a few things that really hold me back from taking Darren Waller in like the top echelon of my fantasy football draft.
Yeah, again with Waller, he's still going to be the number 1 target because that's really the only guy that Daniel Jones will be able to rely on. Maybe Cody Bellinger, the tight end too, but I don't really see that happening much. And again, like when you're passing the ball, Waller's probably going to get a good amount of targets.
I mentioned a couple guys. I like Gesicki and Irv Smith. Irv Smith, I'm a little more hesitant on because the Bengals they already have a ton of weapons.
Yeah, Chase, Higgins,
Boyd. That's probably the top 3. If you were ranking the top 3 wideouts from 1 to 3 in the league, I think since he ranks 1 in the league,
they have a lot of them.
So they're really talented. So maybe not there, but like I've always thought Gesicki is like a red zone like beast and like a great player to catch touchdowns and get. Throw it up to him. He'll make plays. I think he's more athletic than people give him credit for. Now he goes to the Patriots. Belichick loves to get the tight end involved.
Yeah,
obviously. I mean, he set history when he had the 2 tight ends that were going off at the time. We won't mention who those 2 tight ends are.
Yeah,
one of them is a murderer and dead now.
All right, Chris, let me hear your top 5 tight ends, and then give me a sleeper.
My top 5 tight ends. Well, I mean, I think top to bottom, there's only one tight end that like really stands out. That's Travis Kelce.
Of course. Yeah.
All right. What about you, Scotty? Who's your top? Obviously, never mind. Next question.
What?
Yeah, we're doing the tight end rankings, but you got Kelce.
No, I know. Yeah.
And then at number 2.
I mean, I think Mark Andrews is pretty clear number 2.
Yeah, Andrews 2, maybe Goddard at 3.
Well, some people are going to slot in Kittle, and I don't believe in Kittle as much as I think Kittle falls off quite a bit. Kittle is a guy that I'm worried about because of so many we talked about this on the last show too. Freak athletes in San Francisco. They have so many ways to spread the ball around, and Kyle Shanahan focuses on matchups. So if a matchup doesn't lend itself to a tight end, George Kittle will have a 0-point game for you, and it's just terrifying. But then he'll have like a 25-point game the next game when tight ends are a great matchup. So Kittle scares me. Goddard has been somewhat productive recently. TJ Hawkinson maybe really slots in.
Hawkinson didn't do as much as people like to think he did once he got traded to Minnesota.
He's young, though. Yeah, he's young, and he was traded in the middle of the year.
He's not and also old, Hawkinson was a top 5 tight end fantasy wise, at least in my league. That's not saying too much.
No, you didn't have to do a lot to be number 2 in fantasy and tight end this year.
Yeah, I would
Kelsey
take Hawkins in my
outscored
top
every
5.
other fantasy tight end by over 100 points last year.
Yeah,
That's how
okay,
big of a
Kelsey's
difference.
number one
by far
easily.
number one.
Yeah,
argue
I
about
think
that.
if Andrews is healthy, he's number 2 for sure. You have the question of like Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is an athletic freak who. Thank you,
Martin.
Midwest.
Thank you
It's
for
a
the follow.
Midwest
Appreciate that love.
swang.
Martin, who's your team and where you're from? Like to get to know you a little bit. Thank you for the follow. Let's go.
I mean, where do you slot Kyle Pitts? I honestly have no idea.
Kyle Pitts
I-
terrifies me.
Kyle Pitts, talent wise, I probably put him number 1 or 2 talent wise.
From a strict
Yeah.
athletic.
From a straight like ability. But is
he was-
Atlanta going to throw him the ball, or do they just want to have a top 5 pick that they just don't throw the ball to?
Like, it's so frustrating
so
the way
weird
that
last year, dude.
so frustrating.
It's so weird. I think with Desmond Ritter at QB, I think Kyle Pitts is going to have a good year this year. I think Kyle Pitts probably for me is the number 3 tight end, but I drafted him as the number 3 tight end last year, so I can't do it again. I've been hurt.
You burned
He burned me. I can't do it. But I think
That's one of your
I think
things
the
you learned from
upside-
last year. Don't
I think
ever
the
draft
upside-
Pitts.
I think
Yeah,
Pitts
I
could
would
be a
put
monster this year.
Ingram and Njoku both above Pitts production wise.
And
Talent-wise.
Joku is a guy that
And Njoku's never done anything. Njoku's just been a name
Oh,
in
he's a
Cleveland for like 10 years.
he's a guy
Nice
with
hand.
all the hype and no production. Like he's
Like,
always
I'd take Fryermuth over Ingram or over Njoku.
Yeah, I mean, Frymouth. I know I'm going to sound biased, but Frymouth will probably be a sleeper tight end this year.
Fryermuth's fine. He's like a 7, 8
Yeah,
overall
I can
tight end.
accept that.
and
I
then
can accept that.
and then
He'll
you
be a good sleeper.
as if I didn't hate the Cardinals as much. I mean, Zach Ertz would probably be a sexy pick
Zach
for me.
Ertz hasn't done jack and
But
shit since going to
Cardinals
Arizona.
are projected to be the worst team. They score the least amount of
and
points.
They drafted the Rammy a couple years ago.
And they draft,
so.
yeah, they did.
And they didn't use him at all. They haven't used Trey McBride at all, or Zach Ertz. And now you got Colt McCoy starting for you. Do not touch Zach Ertz at all, or Trey McBride.
If you want to go deep sleeper, I think Higbee in LA is going to have like a comeback year. If Stafford's healthy, I think he's going to target Higbee a decent amount. Where Higbee
You
might
guys
be like
know
a
me.
pretty decent
Other than
option.
drafting my 2 Packers tight ends that are rookies, I think Cole Clement of Chicago. He's a deep sleeper.
Oh, yeah, I like him.
They liked him. I mean, I liked him last year, and he sucked. So, not that he sucks. He just didn't have any fantasy production. Chris, there's a sleeper in Denver.
Well, I mean, there is Greg Dulcich, which I feel like there's a lot to like about him. He's got like some weird swag kind of vibe to him that I feel like we've missed out in tight ends here in Denver, and they used him quite a bit last year. I think that the offense will lend itself more to get him some more production, but I mean,
Cuban Alberto, baby.
Yeah,
Alberto.
I thought Russell
Come
Wilson
on,
was
man.
sleeper in Denver.
I think the tight end position is going to be fascinating in fantasy football this year because you can feel so different. Like you get past like 2 or 3 guys, and like it's literally like if you tick Greg Dulcich at 4, I'd be like, that's a little wild, but that he might finish 4th. Like I don't know. Like
Yeah, I'm probably
there's so
gonna
much
use
in
the,
the air, up in the air with the tight end position that
I'm probably gonna use the same strategy I did last year. Get two of the top tight ends early in the draft because which way, like I have 2 guys that can produce in a position that doesn't have anything. And if I'm bad, I can get a lot of value on the trade market and boost my team.
Easier said than done on the trade.
Did you all hear that though?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what to avoid. Don't draft tight ends, apparently.
Yeah.
Or
everything
rec.
Everything opposite of rec.
I mean, it worked for me last year.
Or
I mean, I
rec.
was struggling. I made a great trade with my backup tight end, which was Hawkinson. Got me a ton of value and shot me back into playoff contention.
Or rec, you just draft Kelsey and you don't have to worry about any of that.
I did draft Kelsey last year. I drafted Kelsey in the 2nd round last year.
And you draft
Nega, I like your list in the chat. That's not a bad one.
Kelsey,
Which ones?
Andrews, Goddard, Kittle. I agree with all of them except maybe Kittle. Well, Goddard. Yeah, I would say I don't know if I believe in Kittle this year or most years.
Well, if you had any of those your starting tight ends, you'd probably be happy.
I had Kittle last year as one of my starting tight ends, and it didn't pan out for me until the end of the season when they made the shift at quarterback, and we had Purdy come in and light up Kittle's stats for a change.
Also, speaking of that, Jimmy G did get cleared in his physical, so he will play for the Raiders now.
Thank goodness.
It is official.
Let's go.
We don't have to sit through a year. We won't have to sit through a year of Brian Hoyer.
I'm gonna rattle off a handful. So we kind of talked about some of these. So we talked about all the ones that I had on my list. I think we've kind of covered. But just real quick, just to refresh, any of these stand out to you, Scotty? Brandon Cooks to the Cowboys, we talked about. Allen Robinson to the Steelers. Juju Smith to the Patriots. Thielen to the Panthers. Jamal Williams to the Saints. Damian Harris to the Bills.
No, the Bills have never been able to run the ball.
Yeah, Damian Harris is not going to do anything.
I'd rather take James Cook over there, and
I wouldn't take Cook either. I wouldn't touch any of the Bills running backs unless I was desperate.
I'd take Cook as upside. I think Cook's going to be if you're taking a running back in Buffalo, that's the guy to take.
Yeah. I'd rather take Stevenson in New England.
Let's see. I thought Russell Wilson was the sleeper in Denver. This year he's a sleeper.
He was asleep last year.
He was definitely asleep last year. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
In all my drafts, tight end scoring has cost me wins, says STG. I think it will.
Then just draft Kelsey.
Just draft Kelsey.
Yeah.
Kelsey's finished number 1 in tight end scoring. Like, people sleep on that, but the ability to know that you're getting the number 1 tight end when you take the number 1 tight end for the last 7 or 8 years or whatever it's been for him, like, there's comfort in, like, I know he's getting older and eventually it won't happen, but I don't know if you've seen the wide receiver core in Kansas City, Chris, but it's not exactly elite.
No. Well,
so who are they going to throw to?
Well, and the other thing too there is he's one of the healthiest tight ends on average. He stays healthy and never misses games. So when you're looking at guys like,
ironically, he missed his first year, his rookie year. He missed the whole season, and
then after that,
I don't know if he's missed games at all after that.
Yeah,
I think he's played in every game since then.
He's consistent. The Chris jinx is born. Maybe. I don't know.
If Kelsey falls off a cliff, everyone ban Chris.
He's in.
Can I answer 2 questions? Yes, JK, I do think the Washington Commanders will get renamed, and it's not elite, but Mahomes will make them elite. Yeah, Mahomes is the best quarterback I've seen since Aaron Rodgers. That guy's unreal.
Since Aaron Rodgers.
No, I mean you had it so close.
That guy's unreal.
You could have just stopped with Mahomes is the best quarterback I've ever seen, and then Insane.
And then Cuban Benny stealing my joke. The sky is the limit.
It's true.
I don't love Sky Moore. Honestly.
Yeah, but I do love a Kadarius Toney in fantasy. I do love that.
If Kadarius Toney can stay healthy, he will have a monster year.
Breaking news! Didn't he get hurt today?
He did.
Yeah, he
did. He was catching punts before the practice even started, and he got hurt. The practice really hadn't even started, and he was
dude. I want to buy into him so much, and he's so talented. Injuries have he's had hasn't he had 6 different extremities injured in the last
he's only been in the league for
6.
2. He's only been. This is going to be his 3rd season. Chris.
I feel like he's had so many different designations. He's got an arm, a leg, a calf, a neck. I don't know. I'm just making.
But if that dude is on the field, he is the second most talented wide receiver that Mahomes has ever played with.
Yeah,
behind Tyreek Hill, and it's not close.
It's not.
Chris, just so you know, I think there's only 4 extremities, so I don't know how you can hurt 6.
I mean, I'm counting the extremities of the extremities. Is that a thing?
Yeah. The hands,
the fingers.
Chairman made a point that I was going to make, and I didn't
Of course.
to Milwaukee. He's like,
Oh, I didn't want to
Mahomes-
hear Chairman's point because
Mahomes already has more
Patrick
Super Bowl
Mahomes
wins.
has not played under Mike McCarthy the majority of his career.
Okay.
Sorry.
What happened when his only Super Bowl win is with McCarthy, but what happened when he was outside of McCarthy?
The 49ers have
We don't need to talk about that, Scotty.
He's only how did
We
he
don't
only,
need to talk about
not
that.
only
We were
it's actually
13-3
shocking.
years in a row.
It's actually shocking that like not only did he only win one Super Bowl, he only made one Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When it's all
they
said
didn't
and
even-
done, and you talk about Aaron
Mahomes
Rodgers,
has made 3 already.
it's
So, by the way, do y'all happen to read the Jaw Play comics?
I'm not underestimating how great Mahomes is.
You are a little bit. You
He's
said
the
he's the best
second best
quarterback you've
quarterback.
seen since Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
But he's already been more successful than Aaron Rodgers.
That success doesn't mean. I mean, how good is Dan Marino? Does that mean he's a bad quarterback?
Well, in what metric is Aaron Rodgers better than Patrick Mahomes then?
Better quarterback.
Oh, that's not a metric. That's just a statement. That's an opinion.
Pass percentage, interception percentage, everything.
You
Super
said-
Bowl
I'm
wins, though.
sorry.
You got him.
No, hold
You
on.
got him on
Best
that.
percentage? Best percentage? What do you mean by best percent? Like completion percentage?
Completion,
Okay.
interception rate.
I mean, that's where diehard Rodgers fans like to go is his interception rate, which is really bizarre to me. I mean, it is low.
Yeah, because he just throws the ball into the stands. If it's even close. Good night.
Okay. I'm gonna bring up both. I'm gonna figure out what's what here. Hold on.
guys, while Scott is looking that up, go ahead and let us know if we missed any players that changed scenery, that you're curious on what we feel about their new team and how that's going to affect their fantasy value. Throw it out there. Let us know so that, hey, we covered a lot of players that have changed teams, but there's also some that we probably didn't get to. So throw them in the chat.
So career completion percentage, which was one of your two things. Rodgers 65.3, Mahomes 66.3. That's a higher number. Yards per attempt, Rodgers 7.7, Mahomes 8.1. I think you might be right on TD to interception ratio, but it's pretty close. But I do think Rodgers might have that. I'm just looking at the total numbers, so I don't know.
Better completion. Mahomes has better touchdown percentage, says Chairman.
I mean, Mahomes is.
It's kind of hard to argue with anything with Mahomes.
Yeah.
No,
He's
I'm not
best
arguing
to
it.
ever do
It's
it.
just fake news. Because Rodgers is 40 years old.
Well, and again, going into the longevity versus what Mahomes has done in such a short period of time, like it's kind of crazy too. So it's like, I feel like the fact that he's accomplished as much as he has in a shorter period of time versus Aaron Rodgers, which I feel like Aaron had so many opportunities and just ended up not being able to just prove it when it mattered in the playoffs, especially against some of those 49ers teams. I mean, man, it's just it's brutal.
Yes, we had plenty of opportunities.
Rodgers'
That's the sort of
best
subject.
season ever was 48 touchdowns. Mahomes has already eclipsed that in a season. Rodgers' best yards in a season was, well, regardless, it was less than 5,000. Mahomes did that in his first year. He eclipsed both of those in his first year playing quarterback in the NFL.
But his first year playing quarterback, he didn't even get 1,000 yards. I don't think he even got 300.
All right, his first year as a starter. Okay, he played one game.
Like I said, guys, I am not arguing that Mahomes is great. I still think he's the second best quarterback I've ever seen other than Aaron Rodgers.
Right, and I'm telling you why that's
you're naming
it's
this
a
guy is
mistaken
in
opinion.
his 20s.
I mean, if we're going down this insane
how long it lasts. His stats are going to diminish.
Why?
If we're going down this route, Pickett's better than Mahomes.
Oh,
hold on. All right. First of all, I'm just ignoring that because that's idiotic. Why? You said his stats are going to diminish. Why? Why? Why are they going to diminish? He's like 26, 27 years old. Why are they going to diminish?
Yes, he's in his 20s. Once he gets in his older 30s.
It's only a game.
So 10 years from now, they'll diminish?
Scotty,
A decade from now?
I think you're being baited.
Hey, you're
I'm
being
just trying to
condescending. I'm admitting he's a great quarterback. Is he all time going to be better than Aaron Rodgers? We'll see if it
Absolutely.
holds up.
He already is.
TD interception
Yeah.
ratio. Rodgers is 1. Mahomes is 2 all time. Says chairman.
Yeah. 1 and 2 all time. So fine.
Rodgers should
has
get
that, but
point for longevity. Mahomes may not be
is
able to play 20
already-
years.
Mahomes is already better than Rodgers.
So
But to be fair, Mahomes is better than anyone that's ever played. So that's not a shot at Rodgers, actually. That's just
If you want
reality.
to talk Super Bowls, why isn't Tom Brady even brought into this conversation? Is Tom Brady better than either of these two?
Tom Brady is more successful
yeah, I feel
than
well.
these two.
Well, it's going to take time for it to be official. Also, Scotty, you're potatoing. You've been stuck on this face for the past like 5 minutes.
No,
It's a decent face.
it's decent. Yeah, he's popping in and out. There it is. But I will. Yeah, I think there's a difference between six. Like when it's all said and done, I think in the grand scheme of things, you're gonna see Mahomes probably in that. Like it's gonna be up there with Tom Brady, if not like passing Tom Brady at some level on certain statistics and certain things. It's inevitable.
Mahomes will pass. Mahomes will lead every statistical category at the end of his career. Basically,
Should
at
he?
the quarterback.
Yeah, if he stays healthy and he plays as long as well, and also longevity for him as well is going to be a factor.
And he works at that, so I think that's not a concern.
So
I
there
mean,
you go.
If you want to go longevity, I mean, you got Drew Brees, you got Tom Brady.
Drew Brees is
They're not
Drew
better
Brees
than
is
Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, or even Joe Montana for that matter.
Okay, this is we're going into a rabbit hole that we probably don't need to go into.
Yeah, we would probably get into.
This is we probably don't need to go this deep into the debate. So,
Is there any other changes of teams that you, Scotty? I don't think you really. Do you think Rodgers will? You said you think he'll be okay in New York as far as like.
I like Rodgers in New York. I mean, obviously, going to a new team and a new system in general takes time, but like, I mean, their wide receiver 1, I love. He's got some of his former wide receivers there too. You know, a lot of question on like the running back. You got Breece Hall, but when is he going to be healthy coming off the injury last year? And the offensive line, if they can stay healthy, like I think Aaron Rodgers could be.
only
The problem is people are going to take Aaron Rodgers based off his name higher than he probably should go in fantasy.
yeah,
That's the problem. He is not going in a new system. He's going into his old system with Nathaniel Hackett. He's got all his boys.
I don't know how much Nathaniel, after watching the Broncos last year, I'm not sure how much Nathaniel Hackett had to say in the system. That dude
that's
is
probably.
I question a little bit too.
that dude's dumb. He's dumb as rocks. I promise
Like,
you.
He made the Broncos worse than even Scotty expected them to be. Like,
I think Rodgers, when you have Rodgers, you need someone that he likes working with personality wise, and I think he likes working with Nathaniel Hackett. So that
Probably
works
because
in that
Hackett
sense. But I don't think Hackett like schemes up anything.
No, Hackett's probably just a yes
dumb.
man.
Yeah.
Hackett is to Rodgers as Tyron Lewis to LeBron.
Yeah.
yeah. Let's see. I would look.
He's just there to say, yeah, whatever you want, buddy.
Did they talk about who's getting the points on the Jets at wide receiver? So, like, who the top wide receiver we expect to be?
Of course, Garrett Wilson's the best receiver, but you gotta wonder if Rodgers will target his guys more.
I think
Garrett Wilson should be probably the prime target. If you're
I'd
taking,
be shocked actually if Garrett Wilson's not a top 10 wideout.
I would probably prioritize the high ceiling potential for Garrett Wilson over some of the guys that are there in New York. Naga for sure. If that would just be me if I was drafting.
Yeah.
Players.
You will be drafting soon.
Which, yeah, we're going to be getting that going here soon. We have our fantasy football leagues popping up, so that's why we're doing a lot of fantasy focus. We're going to be doing this throughout the season, talking about rankings each and every single week on who we like, who we don't like, who might have bad matchups. So we'll talk about these throughout the course of the season. Hit that follow button if you want more fantasy football insights, action, just questions. Throw it our way. We'll get you all squared away with everything throughout the NFL season, especially leading up to it as well. We are 45 days, 20 hours, 24 minutes, and 43 seconds away from the NFL season. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Is Rodgers going to be in his own office? They're probably he might have his own office, but we know how having your own office works out for your team.
I mean, that office will be reserved for him and for his best friend.
Which one, Hackett or Lazard Cobb?
I was talking about Hackett.
Okay.
Hackett.
What goes on in that office is their business,
Yeah, Hackett allows those things, so it works.
If you want to smoke your ayahuasca in your office, go for it.
Ayahuasca.
I think Rodgers loves the attention, but he's gonna hate the attention he gets in New York. It's gonna be such a different beast, and I can't wait to see. Like, we haven't talked about that. Aaron Rodgers fit with the media and like the scrutiny that comes with a big city like New York, with an organization that has been starving for success for so long. Like, he might get eaten up alive. He's not used to this quiet Green Bay thing anymore.
I mean, there's a building in New York that probably houses more people than Green Bay does. It's not different.
Just one building?
Obviously, he still likes the attention because he goes on Pat McAfee's show once a week and loves that. So there's a part of him that likes it, but it's only in his comfort zone where he knows he's protected. So in New York, I don't think people protect you. That's not really New York's MO.
No.
I don't know if you've heard
it. Not only are they gonna, I was gonna say they're gonna shoot it straight, but actually they're gonna be way more negative than straight. Like, New York goes off the deep end immediately, and gets aggressive in almost a way where it's like unfair to the player.
I don't know if you've heard it, but the owner for the Yankees. There's been a few times where he's quoted going, I don't know why the fans are so mad at us.
Yeah. Well,
I think Aaron Rodgers already has a penthouse in New York with the room for David Bakhtiari after the Packers start 0-3. Give me him. If he wants his best friend.
I mean, where is it? You mean the Jets are getting traded for Bakhtiari?
He does love Bakhtiari.
Yeah.
I honestly think that'll happen. Bakhtiari's not happy here. After the Packers start 0-3, he's going to be like, I'm out.
Yeah, and the Jets will probably need a left tackle once Mekhi Becton goes down for the 20th time.
Could be.
What position is he supposed to be playing these days, Mekhi Becton?
Becton, he was drafted to be a left tackle.
Sure, but like he's got.
I mean, either way, he's supposed to be an offensive tackle, left or right. I don't know for sure, but yeah.
I just throw him in a guard and let him maul some people, and maybe he avoids injury that way.
Get me. I'm trying to think. I forget who they have on the other side, but they have Laken Tomlinson, who is a beast.
They've put assets, like they've drafted high at the.
Yeah, they're real. Besides quarterback, the roster is loaded.
Yeah, I mean the defense is good. They haven't played Mahomes, so we'll see. Yeah. They don't play him again this year.
Yeah, but yeah, like that roster, that is a really good roster. I'm just worried about Rodgers destroying the locker room and then Nathaniel Hackett being an idiot.
I don't know. I get
the risk if you're New York. Like, shoot your shot. And I like their coach a lot. I think their GM's really good.
Yeah, although Salah might be on the hot seat, especially if Rodgers doesn't like him.
So many hot seats. It's exhausting. Why be an NFL coach? Because like you're constantly on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coaches in general.
Unless you're like Andy Reid. I've heard Belichick, if he doesn't have a good year this year, is out.
I don't know how much I believe it. I think Belichick probably has a job until he doesn't want it anymore. But
I've heard
honestly, Belichick,
that like if they don't produce this year, Belichick's on the chopping room floor.
Honestly, I still love Belichick as a coach. I just hate who he hires.
Can you imagine the bidding war for Belichick next season if he gets let go and he just like has certain
bid for him, dude? Not that I don't think Belichick's great, but how old is he?
He's got to be like his
80. He's getting
in his 60s or 70s.
Him.
He's in his 70s.
No, him and Popovich from the Spurs are probably in the same category where like they're so close to retiring, but they've had such a successful career and they've kind of carved out this space where they're like so well renowned that it's hard to just I don't know. It's just
honestly,
they're both the same.
To be fair, he's only 71 and the president of our country is 80. So who's to say he can't do the job, Chris?
Yeah.
Biden's killing it.
If Belichick could find like quality offensive coaches, the Patriots could be up there this year.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough division.
No, I don't see the Patriots being competitive in that division for a little bit.
Yeah, they're not gonna.
They were in like the AFC South. I'd be like, all right, they might.
In the AFC South, they'd probably win it this year.
No, Jags. I got the Jags.
Well, yeah, Jags. Yeah, but yeah, I could still see the Patriots winning that J division. I could see it. I'm not saying it'll happen for sure, but I'd see it.
Well, we'll find out. We're going to talk about a lot of that coming up here, but that's going to be, I think, the main kind of players when it comes to all the change of scenery for these fantasy football projections and what we think could happen. We still have training camp. We still have all these things, so a lot of this could change, but that's where we're at as of today.